Welcome back, everybody. It is Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Theater and Tech Trends live. That's right. This is live, folks, not rehearsed at all. And tonight, I have yet another wonderful show to bring to you. It's been a momentous week this week for the McCoy family, and we'll talk about all my stuff later, but the focus is going to be on my two guests. And I have joining me tonight, Jason Turner, co-founder of PowerShades. The co-founder.
Hello.
That's right. And Anthony Grimani, who's been on the show a couple of times this year already. Always a pleasure to have you back. I've had a number of people beg, plead, prostrate themselves and say, please get Anthony back. And I said, I will do that at least one more time this year because that's what I have scheduled. and here we are. So everybody out in the audience, thank you for joining tonight. If you have any questions, make sure to drop those in comments, and I will try and get to those as we move along. And I'll say hi to folks as you're coming in. So, Stephen, nice to see you here tonight. Glad to have you. And to get started, a couple of introductions. So let's start out with Anthony, and then Jason will come to you. So just a few seconds of who you are, what you do, and why people should care, and then Anthony will jump right into your stuff.
Well, first of all, I am also co-founder of Grimani.
Oh, I like it.
Excellent. Yeah, I didn't start this on my own. I started it on impetus, actually, of our chief engineer, Manny LaCaruba, who is illustrious in that he used to run a very, very famous recording studio. He used to be the chief engineer of a really famous recording studio called The Plant in north of San Francisco. And he's come up with all of the ideas for this really novel way to do loudspeakers. So I can't even take credit. The only credit I take is that I hired him. Good.
Nice.
So there's a lot of, I could talk for a while. I think what I want to say is I've been doing this for about 40 years. I've been doing it first for fun. And then I was lucky enough to turn this into a career. I studied electrical engineering. I was lucky enough to get a job at Dolby Labs, pretty much right out of college, worked there for a number of years. And then I was lucky enough to get hired to run Home THX for about 10 years. And then about, 25 years ago, officially this year, I started my own company that does designs of high-end screening rooms, home cinemas, recording studios, post-production facilities, and some other places wherever there's sound and picture going on and it needs to be engineered. Out of that design work came a spinoff that was a new generation or new thoughts about how to make speakers so that they're easier to make work, so that they're smaller, so that they play more dynamically, and they leverage all the new technologies that are available to us today, from the point of networking and digital this and all kinds of different things. I'll talk about that. So that's enough about me. Jason.
Yeah, that's a tough one to follow. Ironically, I also have a background in electrical engineering. That's where I started. Spent the first part of my career in aerospace, actually, and then into industrial automation. And, through all of that, my real first love has always been audio. Spent my youth building speakers and, doing car audio, probably like a lot of your listeners.
A lot of people of our age started out that way.
And, the natural progression into home audio and, building speakers. And I've still got a big CNC machine in my garage to build speakers and do woodworking. But, through my industrial automation career and doing a lot of things like motorized furniture, and anytime you go to a movie theater with the motorized recliners, or anytime you lay in a bed that you can articulate, that's really been a lot of my background. And in 2017, my business partner, Ryan Chacon, and I got the opportunity. We'd been doing a lot of energy management stuff with hotels, and got asked to incorporate the motorized window treatments along with the energy management in these hotels. And that was really the stepping off point. We realized really how behind the times the automation and the control and everything was in that industry, and thus PowerShades is what happened out of that. We actually started the company originally as a contract engineering company doing automation and controls for other companies, and pretty quickly PowerShades consumed all of our efforts, and here we are, man. Going on 8 years of it now, and growing and growing, and a lot of cool stuff coming out, and really looking forward to talking about it and how it plays with home theaters. You know, a little bit of a around the way to get into that, but really a lot of ties into it. And one of my favorite things is marrying the functionality, the automation, the engineering of two cool systems and infrastructures together like this. That I get a kick out of that. So thanks for having me.
That sounds great. We always have these little custom projects that I'll just send you the plans. You can see them in your garage.
There you go. There you go.
Cool. Now, before we jump back to Anthony, I just want to say hi to everyone. A lot of folks out there. Hi-Fi Haven has joined. Mr. Gould is with us. Wayne, I've got my eye on you, Mr. Hatfield. But with that, Anthony, you are going to tell us about some spinoramas today.
Spinorama. So I am indeed. I'm going to spend a little time talking about what makes a good speaker a good speaker. What's known today in defining some specifications that you can look at as a user for a product. Why? What is it? Where does it come from? Who came up with it? And then demonstrate that. Hey. The speakers we're making all come from essentially from that impetus, essentially. Mm-hmm. So it starts with Spinorama. So have you, Giles? Do you know where the word Spinorama came from?
So when I hear the word, there are two things that I think of that absolutely have nothing to do with audio. One is I always think of the old roller rinks, and you would just ride, go in circles for no particular reason. The word just sounds like a very 80s kind of, it's a spinorama. And then the other, do you remember there was a arcade game, I think it was called Arachnoid, and it had a roller controller, and then you had to move your vehicle around the edge of the screen, and then you would shoot spiders or something that were coming up. And so, but that has nothing to do with anything. But that's what I always think of when I hear the word. But you can tell us where it came from.
Well, I will ask Dr. Floyd Toole, who coined the term, if he was inspired by either of those two things. So, Floyd's a good buddy. He has been extremely influential in our industry at large on the professional side, and he's done a lot of different things, including being retired now. Nice guy. But I think he made it his life passion to say there must be a way to measure loudspeakers and be able to tell from those measurements that they're going to sound good. Of course, you want to listen to them when you're a designer of a loudspeaker, but you got to start with something. And it's sort of, I guess, the acoustic or electroacoustic equivalent of, hey, there's a bunch of things you can measure on a person's body when you go to the doctor that says, yeah, you're healthy. Now, you could have a great bill of health from your doctor and still keel over with an aneurysm or something. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But there in the medical field, there's all these different things that we know. Hey, if you run this test and you got numbers within those things, that means you're fine. And I think Floyd's effort, going back years now, I'm going to say 40 years, was like, let's come up with a series of data points that say if you design a speaker like this, most people are going to go, it sounds good. And in fact, in his research, he's found, and I'm going to show you that if speakers meet a good criteria on this, 87% of listeners will go, I like that speaker. I like the way that sounds.
Nice. Right.
And that's good. And so, yep, there will always be people outside that curve. That's what statistics all are. I think chocolate's great. I eat a lot of chocolate. And believe it or not, there's people who don't like chocolate.
Yeah, but those people, when you look at a standard distribution curve, they're like at the tips of the tails. I mean, they're like where the curve touches the x-axis, that's
Yeah.
them. There's
well,
one on either side.
You have to like zoom in a lot to see them.
Yeah, it's like
anyway.
those videos where it shows the planets and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, that
Right.
person is, if you do that backwards, they're like
That's where they are.
infinitesimally small.
So in the audiophile industry, which is the word audiophile could mean anything. It's like whatever you want to say, but there's an entire mystical approach at designing product, electronics and loudspeakers, and then buying those things. And a lot of it is based on, hey, what feels good and all this other stuff. Great. But just like there is in health, there's people who believe, forget what the doctors are doing. I'm going to go do Chinese herbal remedies. I'm going to meditate. My health will be driven through this other process. Great, fine. But if you actually do believe that there's a value at doing an echocardiogram, so that's for the medical side, there is an equivalent in the design of loudspeakers that I'm going to show you. And that's,
so what is that? What is that called on the medical side? Like homeopathy or something like that?
Well, homeopathy is one approach of health, which actually does mean you're taking small doses of largely natural medication. But there's a whole bunch of other ways that people want to keep their health, and there's a value at all of it. By the way, you could never say that an acupuncturist doesn't know what they're doing. I've in China. I love the way we can stray on these calls. I think this is great.
No, this is great. This is the whole point, right?
I've walked by. I was in China in Beijing. I was there for a lecture series, and at night I go walking down, and I walked by this little commercial district, and I'm passing. There's a little store there where they're fixing little motorcycles, grease pit. And right next to that is a dentist, and it's warm. They have all of the gates open, and there's a person getting operated, and surgery. You're hearing, and they've got needles sticking out of their head.
That's very interesting.
And I got to tell you, the amount of grinding I was hearing was telling me there's no way that person is not doing anesthetics, because that sounds like we've all been
in there.
So there it is. Acupuncture can work fantastic to, block all those pain points while you're getting your teeth drilled out. And when you're done and they pull the needles, talk. So there's a value at looking at all of these different.
Why do you like after they pull the needles out again? I didn't quite pick that up. Right on.
I attach really good value at all of the emotional senses, especially when it comes to music. And I'm not one to design things just strictly by the book. You gotta listen to them. I'm not one to calibrate things all by the book. You gotta listen to it, but you gotta start somewhere. So I'm gonna talk about what it is that Dr. Floyd Toole and other people have said. This is, if you do this, chances are you got a good speaker. So I got a little presentation over here. Hopefully, if I press the present button and I share
it to me, and then I can bring it on screen.
Screen. Okay, we'll do this. And I want to show the entire screen, and I want to screen one. Boom. Are you seeing this?
Give it a second to spin up, and I will add to stage.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh, you killed it.
You killed it. Start again. Okay. Share screen. Bing. Bonk. Bank. Bonk. Dink.
Okay, and then it just bonked on my side, and then it binged, and now we're gonna bong.
And what I wanted to do is to hide that little thing. Okay, we are here to talk about what I like to refer to as immersive sound power.
You always have to do this when you say that.
Immersive.
Get my hand in there.
Immersive sound power.
It should be Grimani Systems with the hand like this. Sound power above the top of the hand. I like it.
I like it. Can I use that? I'll give you a portion of the proceeds.
Yeah. No, you can use it for free.
Absolutely. Oh, excellent. Thank you. You guys all heard it here.
Yeah, I bequeath it upon you. But I think it'd be cool. Grimani Sound Power. GSP.
So
that's just a new line of speakers. The GSP, Grimani Sound Power. It's good.
Twice the sound power. So there is a okay. Let's see. I'm going to try to come down.
Like isobaric, I'm assuming.
I'm
There you go.
I'm gonna be completely isobaric. No, there is a term in acoustics in loudspeaker design that's called sound power. I'm going to show you that. And if the sound power of your speaker is really good, the overall sound is going to be immersive. There, done. That's where that comes from. So, in our world, first a little propaganda. The speakers we do and the techniques I'm going to apply would qualify those speakers for a 21st century approach. There's still a lot of speakers out there that are designed the same way as they were in the 1970s, which was that was a century ago. Okay. Yeah, let's not worry about that. And let's worry about this.
I was just thinking, I was born in the 70s. I'm old.
You're old. You're from the last century.
Damn.
So I do want to mention, ultimately, when we're talking about home cinema, which is not what everybody does, but we're talking about home theater, home cinema, screening rooms. I do want to qualify that all of these things we do with speakers, all these things we do with the design and the acoustics, all of that is ultimately to make good sound, but to replicate a reference. And a reference is a room like this. This happens to be at Skywalker Sound, which is the headquarters of Lucasfilms, where I used to work for years and years. This is a room. Well, this is a room in which the director, the sound designer, the mixer, all the people involved in the sound would sit and listen to the sound system, which is composed of speakers behind the screen, speakers overhead for the top, speakers on the side, speakers on the back, everywhere. And they're dialing knobs until they go, that's exactly the way I want the sound to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that exactly means spatially, like where it places, spectrally, like in terms of tonal balance, and then dynamically, where it is in the sound pressure. So this would be a great place to go watch a movie that was mixed to Skywalker Sound. It's a little hard to do, but you could do it. Another room would be the screening room, the main screening room at Skywalker Sound, called a Stag Theater. Or you could build yourself a room in which you've chosen the right speakers, they have the right sound power, you've chosen the right amps, you've done the acoustics correctly so as to replicate that experience in a room like this. So ultimately, all y'all that are listening, if you really care about doing sorry?
All y'all.
All y'all.
I've been
All y'all.
to the southern states of the United States. All y'all would want to build a room, whether it looks like this or something else, but in which the experience you're getting matches this. This is the reference. So what's interesting in the cinema industry and cinema sound or film sound is there is a reference. There is a way that the sound's supposed to be, and we can tell you how to get there. So sound power is one way to get there. So a quick course in designing a really hot sounding speaker. What really matters is to have smooth sound power to all the seats. What does that mean? Power, does that mean like it's loud? Well, in mathematics, power is really all of the either voltage, sound pressure, whatever it is that's going out in all directions, which over time are energy. I don't know if you're, remember this, but there's a kilowatt and there's a kilowatt hour. And what you pay to your local utility is the energy you've used, is not the potential of one thing to sit there and pull a kilowatt. It's if you use it for an hour, then you're up for, however much that costs. That's energy. They're called an energy company. So in the math behind this, the term power really represents the net sound pressure that's going in all directions around the room. And if you can make a speaker that has a sound pressure that goes towards you, that's got a value, and that one that goes over 20 degrees off axis and 30 degrees off axis and 45 degrees off axis, that has the same character, that's a speaker with really even sound power. That does mean that the direct sound from the speaker to your ears needs to have a smooth frequency response. That means that as you give it a voltage at varying different frequencies, you measure it, what's coming out is the same, but also a smooth off-axis response. So not just the sound that's pointing to your head, but also the sound that's going off in all directions in the room wants to be as smooth as possible. It's also a good idea when you're designing a good speaker for it to have low distortion, so it doesn't sound like a rattling can of metal when you play it loud. It's also important for the thing to be able to play as loud as you would want. And what is that? Well, in the case of film sound, you want to be able to play 105 dB per channel at the seating position.
And if people don't know, that's loud as all heck to me.
It's
pretty darn loud.
It's not crazy loud.
Pretty
It
darn
gets
loud.
crazy loud when you have two of those and a third one and a fourth one and a fifth one that all add up together to giving you 115 to 120 dB, when in a loud scene of a movie, it's not just one speaker, but multiple speakers and subwoofers all adding up to 125 dB. That's loud.
That's super loud.
Where did it come up with that 105 number?
Chat GPT.
Quiz. Chat GPT.
We asked our robot overlords, what is the correct sound level capacity of a good speaker? Floyd made it up is what happened.
Floyd made it up. Actually, no, it was made up before Floyd, interestingly.
Oh, really?
So it just comes from that reference environment. Everything is set up in those rooms. So when the volume is at the position it is, the detent, the place where, like, this is where it's supposed to be, the loudest peak from any speaker is going to be 105 dB. Done. That's how movie theaters are. That's how mixed rooms are done. That's how movie theaters are done. And if you want to hear the full dynamic range of a movie without running out of steam, without overloading, you ideally want to be able to play 105 dB per channel. And I agree, that's pretty loud. Okay. Now let's talk about why this. Sorry,
my comb over.
There you go. Let's talk about why this sound power and off-axis response is so important. So I've shown this slide a number of different times with relationship to acoustic treatments, but here it's relative to speakers. So let's imagine you're looking at a room from the top that's got 7 channels, three fronts, left, center, and right, and then a side left and a side right, a back left and a back right. This would be 7 channels. If you had subwoofers, it would be 7.1, 7.2, 7.4, however many you have. And let's pretend like we're playing sound that's just coming out of the center speaker, which would be dialogue or the sound of a very large tank running into a wall, kablamo. That's usually mixed to the center speaker. There's a direct sound that goes from that speaker to your head. It's actually not an arrow. It's a disturbance of sound waves. It's a little complicated, but there's going to be a feed over that way. And then there's also reflections. One reflection that would bounce off the right wall, one off the left wall, one off the ceiling, the floor. And then if you look at all the reflections on the horizontal plane, up to 3 bounces, and I'll give you an example of 3 bounces. 1, 2, 3. You'll see that there's all the reflections I've shown here as red lines. They're all a little quieter than the direct sound, but there's so many of them that ultimately the overall sound pressure going into your ear from the reflections dominates. It's actually 2 or 3 times louder than the direct sound. Even though every one of those arrows is a little quieter, all together they amount to 2 or 3 times more sound going into your ear canal. And so once you understand that, you'll go, well, I want to make sure that I have speakers that when they're feeding sound to my head, the direct sound from the speaker to my head is good, but also that bounce that's coming just a little bit later is also good. It doesn't have all these errors and distortions in the frequency response. And the sound that's bouncing over here and coming around is also good. Good meaning that it's a smooth frequency response. If you don't do that, what you're listening to is an overall sound that's polluted in terms of frequency response. That's why in the case of Grimani Systems, we developed and patented a special waveguide called a CSA. CSA stands for conic section array, and that's in order to get sound power. Right?
I'm writing down some details and notes that I'm going to share with you at the end that I think is going to be a game changer for your business. Please continue.
Excellent. Giles is my new marketing consultant or branding consultant.
There we go.
Actually, you have a degree in business, right, or something like that?
Well, I have a MBA. Sure.
I think that's in business.
That is absolutely in business. I am literally a master of business.
Literally.
Master McCoy.
Master McCoy. Is it okay if I can I still call you Giles, or do I have to call you Master McCoy?
I prefer for you to call me Big Daddy, but the other two are okay.
Big Daddy Giles McCoy, Master of Business. Okay,
that's right.
Well, we're out of time because I'm just telling
I'm going to share it now.
Okay,
Grimani sound power speakers feed sound to your head.
to your head and to your room. All
Anyway.
right, let's look at a let's look at the
Okay.
sound dispersion.
We have to get to your product today.
Yeah.
We have about 8 minutes left with you, and I require you to actually get to your product and then tell people what it is and how to buy it. We can't
Okay.
just stop and with the technical discussion. You have to talk about your product today.
Okay.
I'm holding your feet to the fire.
But I love educating. Okay, let's look at this.
I want you to sell something.
Let's look at a speaker that's not ours. I would
Okay.
call that bad. This is a speaker that has a dispersion at low frequency, produces a bubble that's about this size at low frequency. In mid frequency, it may narrow down. So what's going to your head is still good, but what's bouncing off the wall has less energy because this direction is less loud. And then at high frequency, like most speakers, there's a beam. There's actually a high frequency beaming. And so if you're sitting right in front of the speaker, you get full range. You move over 3 feet and you're missing the highs and the mids are reducing. That dispersion is inconsistent. That will result in uneven sound in the room. It's just generally bad, and it results in major room-to-room variations. It'll sound one way in one room, differently in the other room, differently in another room.
Yeah,
So
that's called the clown balloon of despair.
yes, indeed. You like that one, huh?
The clown balloon of despair. You don't want speakers that feature the clown balloon of despair.
Clown balloon,
despair.
CBD.
Of despair.
Of despair.
Yeah, CBD. Okay, that's really bad CBD juju. What instead you want is a speaker in which the radiation at low frequency, at the mid frequencies, and the high frequencies is all consistent. Okay. So let's move on. I'll get past all this amazing stuff because we're out of time. These are our speakers. This is the waveguide we designed. The tweeter is actually mounted sideways in it. It looks like a horn.
So it's all reflected sound.
Huh.
Is that still? I guess it would still be considered a direct radiating speaker, but
it's still there still is a path directly from the tweeter, but
Yeah.
most of it is radiated out into this waveguide, and the waveguide is forcing it wide and constant at all frequencies. So that's the target, is to have something that covers from the frequency at which they start, which is usually about 1 kilohertz, all the way up to 16 kilohertz, a really even dispersion, about 16 kilohertz, whatever. But this really smooth sound power, smooth dispersion has been considered the holy grail in speaker design. And it is measured and proven by measuring 70 points of a frequency response in 10 degrees around the waist of the speaker and around the top and bottom of the speaker, which is done by just turning it around the side.
So you have it in a big anechoic chamber, and you've got the microphone, and it goes tick, 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 tick.
Well, there's 3 ways to do it.
spin the
One
speaker?
way is you put it on a turntable, one microphone, and the
Yep.
thing measures, it turns 10 degrees, measures, turns 10 degrees. One method. The other method is you move the microphone. The other method is you have what's called a goniometer of microphones, which is you got a whole bunch of mics
Yep.
in an arc, and they measure all at the same time. That saves time. It costs a whole bunch of money.
It looks impressive, though.
It looks impressive. So this is where Floyd came up with the term spinorama, because you're spinning the speaker in this panorama of its net response. So a real speaker is invariably going to have variable dispersion. The low frequency is going to be wide. The mid frequency is going to narrow down. The high frequency is going to get narrower. And what you get out of that is an overall response in the room that is tilted down. Let me show you that. So this is what's considered a decent speaker. The spinorama data is shown this way, where there's an axial response. This is the sound going right to your head. And that is normally this black line. There is in green is what's called a listening window, which is an average from 30 degrees this way to 30 degrees that way, and plus and minus 20. So that's what's going to the listener in this particular speaker. It's pretty good. It's a good replica. And then in red is the energy going to the walls. It's starting to droop down from the direct sound. And in blue is the sound power, which is the net spherical energy going in all directions. And you can see here how this particular speaker feeds the room with a response that's kind of similar to the axial response, but it's drooped down. Okay. Now,
Yeah, it attenuates significantly.
this is actually considered quite good for speaker designs. And this was the state of the art for many years. And we went, can we do better? So our chief engineer, Manny LaCaruba, went to work and he did better. This is our top of the line speaker, in which this is called a Rixos XL, XL standing for extra large. Here's the axial response in the listening window, and here's the sound power. And the sound power, the net average energy going in all directions, is basically a carbon copy of the axial response, turned down 6 dB. There's a little 3 dB oopsie in the mid-range, which we've actually reduced since this chart has been put out. I should put the new one out. And there it is. So we have a speaker here in which the sound power, what's going into the room, is just really even immersive character. This is another speaker we made called the Rixos M. You can see how this one already has a smoother sound power. This is somebody else's speaker, and that speaker is going to sound this way in the room. That sound power is going to have a dip at 2.5 kilohertz. 2.5 kilohertz is right where you have dialogue clarity. That speaker is going to sound loud, but you're going to be like, oh, I can't tell what they're saying. Not good for cinema. So we do other things, including drive these things. The speakers we make are all driven actively, which is a thing I would love to see more people do in the pro business. In the commercial and pro business, that's done a lot. In the consumer space, it's still very novel. An amplifier per driver with a crossover being done actively, either digitally or analog. That's a way better way to do speakers.
You know, I'm thinking about buying an AES 67 module for my Storm processor and playing with that.
Yeah, so that's a great way to go. So we'll bypass this is how we do that. This is how we do that. Now, really quick, this is the product line, and I will be quiet after that. So biggest speaker we make, and this is what you would want to use if you have a room that's about 50 foot long and you got 5 rows of seats, 8 wide. This thing is our sometimes known as our flamethrower. It puts out 125 dB peaks at 1 meter. It's driven by a 1200 watt amplifier with a separate channel for the woofer, the bottom mid-range, the top mid-range, and the tweeter. Sounds awesome and plays crazy loud.
Is that a Quadrophenia or whatever that brand is? The 4-channel.
Quadrophenia was a movie.
Yeah, well, right. No, there's a amplifier company, and if somebody in the comments will be able to tell the brand name.
So this is a PowerSoft.
Yeah, that's it. PowerSoft, whatever that.
And I'm going to show you that I know how to speak Italian. Quattro canali.
There you go. That thing.
So we use all PowerSoft because it's an amazing amplifier series. No one in the residential high-end space has ever heard of it, but in the professional space, you go to recording studios. You have. Okay, there you go, Mr.
I've heard of their Octocanali or whatever as well.
Autocanali.
They're 8-channel.
Autocanali. Linguini.
Grimani sound power Octocanali. It's not like this. It's like this.
It really is like this. All right. So this is our biggest thing. It's called the XL because it's extra large. Next size down is called the L. It's a 3-way speaker. With these 2 woofers actually operate over different frequency ranges so that there's no vertical lobing. Long story, we can have a whole other conversation about that. 600 watt amplifier drives this thing. You would use this if you have a room that's 30 to 35 feet long. 3 of those across the front. And it will play really loud. Now, just to be clear, this thing is only 6 inches deep. It's 13 inches wide, it's 36 inches tall, and weighs about 45 pounds. Yet it plays beautifully loud. And people go, how do you do that? Well, we do that by using good efficiency drivers. They're expensive. There's an amplifier that drives the woofer separately. There's no passive crossover that dissipates a lot of power. So these things tend to play louder than what your eyes see and expect.
In other words, voodoo.
It's
voodoo.
You could call it voodoo. It's a science. Okay, next level down is the Rixos M. I think you detect a trend. The big one is XL, next one is L, the next one is M. The Rixos M is 4 inches deep, 13 inches wide, 36 inches tall. It's like this little slab of a speaker that will drive a 25 to 30 foot long room at cinema reference levels. It looks like there's nothing up there, and it just is spitting a whole bunch of fire. Comes with the 300 watt amplifier. There you have it. The prices I'm showing here, by the way, are all per unit with the amplifier at retail point. Okay, this is not per pair. I don't understand pairs. In home cinema, there's 7 speakers. That doesn't pair up. 8, 9 speakers, 11 speakers. So this is all per speaker with amplifier.
And do the amplifiers have the audio over IP capability built in?
Yep. So all the
What's that?
Was it Dante you're using on that?
Yes. We have 2 flavors, AES 67 or Dante. You pick which one you want.
Yeah. So AES 67 is kind of the general specification, and Dante is the branded.
Sort of. Dante is a subset. So AES 67 is this umbrella. And then in Dante, there's a subset of that is sort of, I guess the loose way I could put it is sort of the way Apple used to be, which is when you have an Apple product, it's been tested, it complies to all of these criteria of hardware and software compatibility. So the Dante thing is a compatibility assurance, and a few other things that make it easier to run. Sonically, it's going to do the same thing. The bits that are going through are the same, but there's some niceties in Dante that make it cost a tiny bit more. All right, next size down, you guess it, is the Rixos S after the M. The S is like a Rixos M, but a single woofer, a smaller tweeter, and it will light up a 20 to 25 foot room when you use those across the front, just perfectly fine at reference level. And you go in a room and it's playing this, and there's a little speaker about this big crank in. You go, how is that possible? Voodoo.
I like it.
Now, the S is available as a few different form factors. You can either have it as a relatively shallow thing that can go into a wall or on a wall, or as a bookshelf speaker, or as a speaker that partially recesses behind sheetrock so the grill is really small. Then we have a series of speakers made for the ceiling, and they've got an angled waveguide so that they fire down towards you for top channels, typically in Atmos. Or if you have a big screen and you can't put a speaker on that wall because there's a fireplace or a window, you can put these up top and they're firing down to you instead of down to the floor. And there's a few versions of that, the WWD, WD Plus. Anyway, we also make horizontal versions of these speakers. There's a dual woofer, basically higher output, and a single woofer for lower output conditions, called the H2 and the H1. And then we also have a regular tower speaker, self-powered. Nice. The amplifier is built in. It's really pretty. You can get it in any color as long as it's black, white, or silver. And it's an awesome sounding, I'm going to say, in-room audiophile speaker, something you don't build on into a wall or behind a screen. All of these speakers are industrial grade. They just come in this matte black crinkle coat. They're not meant to be pretty. They're meant to be hidden behind stretch fabric or built into a wall and hidden by a grill.
Or if you're somebody like me, you put them on the wall proudly and be like, "Hey, that's my Grimani speaker right there. Check it out. That's my speaker."
Anyway, now we also have a range of subwoofers. A really big Mahangas 21-inch driver, plays all the way to 15 hertz and will rattle your teeth apart. Also driven by PowerSoft Due Canali or Quattro Canali.
I really wish you would call it the Mahangas. I mean,
Mahangas.
You should just call it the Mahangas. I guarantee you'll sell more.
Okay, we're changing the brand. It's easy.
Mahangas.
Mahangas 21.
Mahangas 21.
There's a little bit smaller 18-inch driver in a subwoofer cabinet that's only 12 inches deep. It's not that big. We have a dual 13.5-inch subwoofer, and a single 13.5-inch driver, and a single 10. Which one do you pick is basically how loud do you want your bass? Really, how big is your room? So if you have a really big room, a 50-foot room, you'd want 4 of these. You go down in size, you'd want 4 of these. In a room that may be 25 to 30-foot room, you'd have 4 of those. A room that's 20 to 25, you use 4 of these. And then in a smallish room, you use 4 of these. And it's always 4 because I believe in spreading these things around the room so that they contradict standing waves. And there's an entire way to discuss that, which we won't do here. Do I have 2 more minutes? I hate encroaching on Jason's time. I'm going to mention this. We have Jason, can you give me some, just 2 minutes?
Absolutely.
We have this really cool new thing called a reflectance sound projector. This is made for environments where you have a video wall. You put up a big video wall, there's no room to put a speaker. So we have this sound projector. Now that you got rid of the video projector, you can put a sound projector up there over your head. You can hide it, and it projects the sound off the screen where you believe like the lips are moving over there and the sound is coming right from the screen.
What frequency range are you doing with that?
Very good question. From about 800 hertz up to 16 kilohertz. Below that, and this is the next slide that's coming up, below that, the sound is fed to the left and right speakers as a phantom center. So from low frequencies up to about 800 hertz, you're listening to a phantom center where your spatial capability for location is not that good. And above that, where as you go up from 800 hertz to 1200 hertz to 2500 hertz, where your brain's much sharper at going, the sound comes from there, it's bouncing off the screen.
So could you pair that with a couple of your smalls for a small room?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really cool new product. And finally, we have this completely different wacky thing called the Mini Port 84. It's got an 8-inch woofer and a 4-inch port. This is a little view of what's inside. There's an 8-inch woofer that's basically venting out of this port, in the middle of which is a tweeter. And the pattern through there is what's called a band pass enclosure for the port. Somebody said isobaric earlier. But this thing is basically, when it gets installed, is completely concealed. You don't see it. Like, this is a room that's got a bunch of them. You got to look hard to find it. It gets basically feathered into the plaster. You put the grill on there magnetically, and it just kind of disappears. And it plays full range all the way down to 40 hertz. If you like really big boom bass, use a subwoofer. But that's essentially what's in the product line. I'm going to stop this, and there you have it.
Awesome! Finally, we got to talk a little bit of product. I like it. And we renamed the whole line, and then your big subwoofer has
the Mahangas.
The Mahangas.
And by the way, if you want to look at more of this on the website, it's just simply Grimani.tv, and you'll be able to read up on all of it, see videos, all this other stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for telling all about that stuff. If people are interested in having a room engineered with all these great products, make sure to reach out. I can put you in contact with Anthony, and he can get you going and make your room the envy of all your friends, because that's really why we do this, right? Just to be envious. And then talking about making things envious. I know that when I see a room filled with PowerShades, I'm envious, right? Because it's going to make the room sound better. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So, Jason, we're going to now turn to you, and we're going to talk all about what's going on. And I think there might be some people that don't know what a PowerShade is. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Let's dig in.
Yeah.
And Anthony, that I have to say, very cool stuff.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, audio's kind of always been my first love, and I really enjoyed seeing that, and look forward to digging in deeper and probably reach out. But yeah, let's dig into PowerShades. So, our name kind of says it. We're motorized window shades. And I mentioned a little earlier in the program, motorized window shades is not necessarily something I sought out to do. When I was a little kid, I didn't grow up and say I want to do motorized window shades. But through my background, through all the automation that we've done, through all of the energy management that we've helped do in hotels, we got recruited to help on a program, on a project, in a hotel where they're throttling energy. Everybody does it. You go into a hotel room, you crank down the AC, you turn on the TV, you turn on all the lights, you open the windows, you leave and go to the bar or the pool or whatever. And so hotels were really trying to throttle that energy usage back, not in a creepy way of monitoring people, but just simply knowing if a room was occupied or not. Simply that simple. We got recruited to help close the shades when they were trying to throttle energy usage back. This was back in 2015, 2016, and at the time realized how archaic the control systems were in those systems. Again, my background, electrical engineering, we had done an enormous amount of work in IP-based control, where everything has an address, everything is controllable, everything sits on the network, we can talk to it. We simply could not understand why there wasn't a Ethernet-based window shade motor.
So you're an IoT guy at heart.
Absolutely. We developed it. We patented the world's first power over Ethernet window roller shade motor. Then we've now expanded that into Europe. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You know, everybody's already dealing with PoE, or power over internet, or Ethernet rather, in cameras, touch panels, phones, Wi-Fi access points, all these things that require a little bit of power and a lot of data. So what we did was created a motor that has some energy storage in the motor, so we don't require a huge amount of power. And we can power that thing, you know, shades up to 20 foot wide, 20 foot tall. Mm-hmm. We can do with simple 5 watts of Ethernet power. You know, that in essence is motorized window shades, but there's a whole lot more to it. Again, when we back up and think about energy management, you know, for a second, let's talk about, you know, the aesthetic part of it, the pretty part of it. You're going to have your designer come in. You want your window treatments to look nice. You want them to be quiet. You want the security of it. You want the privacy of it. But there's parts of that people don't take into consideration. We talk about the energy management. When you run a window shade appropriately, meaning when you open it when it's cold outside so you can let the heat in, mm-hmm. when you close it when it's too hot outside to block the heat out. You know, there's very deep studies showing that, you know, we've already replaced most of the incandescent light bulbs. We've got CFLs, LEDs. We've replaced so many of these systems that are energy hogs. Now you add motorized window shades to that when working appropriately, you know, you can help your HVAC, your energy costs by up to 30%. You can reduce that. And again, things people don't think about by letting heat in, you know, to heat that room back up. You know, there's a lot of cool features of that. And something else in window shades, and one of the cool reasons to be on this program and with guys like Anthony here, a lot of the fabrics that we offer, as you go through our fabric offerings in our books. So
let me see. I wonder if I can. Do you have that stuff online anywhere? I don't know if you have the fabric.
You know, I hate to say we don't have that online because I don't get this kind of audience that often. Most of the people that are going to our website are looking for motorized window shades for privacy.
Sure, right on.
You know, but as you dig deeper into that, there are acoustical properties to most of the fabrics that we sell. Anthony had some very cool graphics on the screen there about, you know, all the sound bouncing around in there. You know, people spend a great amount of time doing bass traps and all sorts of acoustical properties and, you know, treatments in the room to either absorb or enhance some of those properties. A lot of the window shades, we've had people that literally have done these in rooms that as they lower the shades, it adds, or, you know, it absorbs the sound. So we can add to the acoustical properties of the room.
Right. So you get a little bit of damping out of it. Okay.
Absolutely. We can provide some dampening in there in a lot of these fabric. You know, not to mention the cool factor, you know, and then in ultimate blackout. So I always really like to give a little bit of education there when people talk about doing blackout shades in a room. We offer light, you know, room darkening fabrics, and then we go all the way to what you see on the screen there to blackout. Now, when we talk about blackout, there's more than just the shade. We have side channels that go on the side of the fabric that block the light out from the side. We've got sill plates along the bottom to block the light coming in from below. And then up at the top, the header up there, there's a whole lot more to the system when somebody talks about true blackout in a room. And I'm telling you, when you put that effort in, when you put the products and the correct fabric in, it is cool. It can really make a difference. We did, we're based in Joplin, Missouri here. We did a house about an hour away in Northwest Arkansas about a year ago, where they did a home theater, literally with mostly glass walls. And we even had a system where they came together in the corner there, where it was almost impossible in the room to do a complete blackout. So on our website, you'll notice we also do exterior shades. And something that we did on that house was actually did outdoor shades, but we mounted them to the house on the exterior of this home theater. So when you were in the room, you didn't realize there was anything on the windows. But when you hit play, we've got, again, with all the control drivers, we work with every major control system out there, Control 4, RTI, Elan, Crestron, URC, you name the control system. But, you hit play on your projector, the shades all come down. And on that particular one, kind of like one of the pictures you see here, the shades come down on the outside of the house with blackout fabric. It literally made the glass in the room transition from this beautiful view looking out over the pool in the backyard to just what looked like black glass and complete blackout and room blackout.
That's cool.
All those kinds of things are completely achievable, kind of with the marriage of motorized intelligent PowerShades along with your home theater with the correct control system and all of the lighting. All of that stuff plays together, and then we talk about the energy management portion of it. We talk about all of the security benefits, the privacy benefits, even the dual shades that we offer that allow you to have a view in and out of the house during the day when you want it. But then a second shade that comes down behind that light filtering shade and has the ability to black the room out. We also have quite a variety of fabrics that we have what we call companion fabrics, where we have light filtering fabrics that go in, the common areas of the house. And then
so here's a dual shade so people so they can understand. It literally is two shade systems stacked on top of each other, so you can have two layers simultaneously if you want.
Yeah, what you're seeing here on the screen is a couple different, as you've mentioned, a couple of the different header options we have. And doing that dual, it really is a cool, it's a look, because again, you can't tell just looking at the window that you have two sets of shades there that are totally independently operable, either together or separately. Again, all the different fabrics to match all the different design that you've got going in the room, in the house, in the theater. And again, one of the things that does separate us a little bit from some of the other motorized window companies out there, number one, is the POE.
Right.
We've got a lot of patents around that in the way that we do it. But number two is we do offer a full line of outdoor shades in addition to our indoor shades. That whole outdoor living, outdoor patio, here at my house, we've got a nice patio on the back of the house where we've got a fire pit. My wife had me do we did these outdoor shades, and in the fall and the winter when it's cold outside, we can lower these outdoor shades, turn on the fire pit out there, and we've just reclaimed the whole patio for the winter. And again, those things go up and down inside of what we call zipper tracks, that bugs and leaves and rain and all that stuff keep that all out and give you a nice, comfortable environment inside your patio. So again, we've been going with PowerShades and growing and introducing new product lines, and kind of because of myself and my co-founder Ryan. Again, both of us come from the audio industry, and the CEDIA market really was our entry point into the motorized window,
Right.
shades, and we've really been enjoying this market. All the customers, all the dealers, everybody that we get to work with and meet at all of the CEDIA shows, and some of the regional, the tech summits, and all that. And selfishly, I got to say, when I get to go to these shows and I get to go see speakers, and listen to some of this stuff, and I've got a pair of 18-inch subwoofers under my house that I did in an infinite baffle that I'm using the whole crawl space of the house and have them coming up through a manifold. I just love this industry, and I love the marriage of the automation and the control and things that we can do together in an industry that seems dissimilar. Again, motorized window shades, as cool as they are, it's not something I set out to do, but it's something that we ended up doing and are having a blast with it. And every time we get into some of these big cool projects, and every time I see across our dealer portal of the next celebrity home or the race car driver, or we start doing some of these big cool houses, and it's hard not to talk about the wow factor when you see these big homes and all the shades working in complete automation. And for the most part, in a lot of these installs we do, people don't even have to work with remotes or that kind of thing. They set them up on schedules. Every install that either we or our dealer network does, one of the foundational things we know of that install is the zip code. And again, none of that is to be invasive or spy. It's simply so we know sunrise, solar noon, sunset, things like that, where we can set up what I call set it and forget it scenes, where every morning at, let's just pick a time, say 8 o'clock in the morning, all your shades open, but then every night at sunset, so that it can follow the sun, whether it's, daylight savings time in the middle of winter or middle of summer, the shades will go down at when it gets dark outside, no matter what time of the year it is. A lot of that cool automation and just marriage of the whole ecosystem, your heat and air, your lighting, your sound. And as people are learning and understanding, motorized window shading is an expansion and an addition to your lighting. We're controlling the natural lighting, where of course your overhead lighting, your cool wall switches, all that, you're controlling the artificial light. So it's a marriage that we're bringing together. And when it's done right, just like with Anthony's, his sound, the power, when it's done right, it's incredible. And it can be really cool, a really satisfying experience.
Yeah. So I have, in my breakfast nook area, there are 3 windows, and I've got a set of 3 dual roller shades there, PowerShades, and we treat them just exactly the way that you describe it. We set them up initially, and I thought I would need to do more with them, but unless for some reason we need to off the cuff change the setting during the day, which we'll just use a remote for, they open up in the morning and they close at sunset, and it's great. And we have a couple of different settings for the light. So we have a very dark, it's not a blackout shade, but it's pretty dark, right? And then we have a more translucent shade, so that we can kind of use both of them or one of them or none of them to get 3 different layers or kind of effects, either wide open, closed, or in the middle, right? And then a lot of times during the day, during the winter, go wide open for more heat inside of the house. And then the summer, we will, close or completely open the dark shade during the day, but the hazy shade, I don't know what the right term for is, we'll only set it like half height or something, just depending on, if we want more or less heat inside of the house. So I can attest that it's great. I love nothing better than, having the shades open in the morning when I go down to the kitchen, and then in the evening when it gets dark, they automatically close up so we don't feel like people are trying to look in the house, right?
I make the joke, and I know we're running out of time there, but I make the joke, how hard is it to walk around and close your shades? But I would ask both of you, and I would ask all your listeners, when is the last time you walked up to your car with a key and unlocked the door, to get in?
Well, I'm a Kaleidoscape user, so I'm sold already. If you know what that is, and that's kind of an inside hi-fi home theater joke. Kaleidoscape's all about the ease of use.
Yeah. And once you get used to these schedules of the shades opening in the morning and closing at night, or, when you hit play on your movie to have them automatically go down, you get used to that. And I can tell you, I lived in an apartment for a little while in between building a house and having to walk around every night and close all those shades. Once you're used to having a whole house on a schedule and automation, it spoils you.
Yeah. I do want to say, you said, it's how wow is this? It's very wow to go into, if you go into a great room and there's 5 or 6 different windows, that suddenly the timer has said, bring the shades down, and they all come down together.
Yep.
It's like watching a beautiful ballet.
Especially if you have a really large room with really humongous windows, and they come really far down. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty
very cool.
So Jason, to close, if people want some of these PowerShades, where can they get some PowerShades?
PowerShades.com. So, we sell through a network of dealers nationwide and in Canada. And we, have some fantastic dealers all over the country. PowerShades.com will allow them to type in their zip code and show them all the authorized dealers in their area.
Awesome.
And, these guys, they're already doing the home theaters, the smart lighting, the, distributed audio, all of that. PowerShades is another tool in their belt now. And so we've been working with a lot of these guys now for around 8 years. And as I said, we're really growing in the CEDIA market, the window coverings market, and really starting to do some big commercial stuff as well. But awesome. PowerShades.com, and they can get somebody, right to their house that day, and starting to do some online stuff and some through some partners that are going to start offering some unique product, and more on that to come soon.
Nice. Awesome.
Can I ask a technical question, Giles? Do I have
we got plenty of time.
You said PoE. Do you mean by that you just run a Cat 6 cable to the shade and it's got power and control, or do you still need another source of power?
So our PoE motors are completely a Cat 5, Cat 6 cable to the shade. That's it.
That is so cool.
Every one of our motors has a complete IP stack, a complete control. Every one of the shades just shows up on your network like any type of device would. It gets an IP address. There is nothing else required.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Now, obviously, that lends itself to new construction. We totally understand it's not easy to get a Cat 6 cable to every window in an existing home. So, of course,
a lot easier than bringing power, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Doing a low voltage retrofit on a Cat cable is a lot simpler than getting the electrician in to have to run power and all of that, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And in addition to that, because of it being low voltage, of course, you don't have to have a licensed electrician in there. All of your integrators, your low voltage guys can do it.
Right.
We do offer In addition to our PoE motors, a full line of battery operated motors that last, roughly, I'm going to say roughly a year in between battery charges.
Wow.
And then you just plug into them and charge them up like you would a cell phone. We do offer, mostly for the outdoor shades, a full line of AC line voltage motors, but these are major heavy, to lift cars, because some of these outdoor shades can get super heavy. But we do offer a full line of motors in addition to the full PoE motor that we offer. And that's a great question. It's straight power over Ethernet. There is nothing else required.
So on the rechargeable battery versions, how do you talk to them? Is it now a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth hop, or how are you talking to them?
We go a little bit lower. It's an RF signal. We operate at 433 megahertz.
Okay.
We're down way below that 2.4 or 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, Zigbee, Z-Wave, any of that.
The busy
But
zone.
it goes through walls better. It propagates a little bit further, and we just don't have near the traffic down at that frequency that some of that other stuff does.
Could you transit, like if you had a control box, one of your units on the second floor, would that be able to penetrate and go down to a floor below and control shades down there? Maybe.
And you're talking about RF.
RF.
The short answer is yes. But when I make the joke about RF, I mean, you could have an elevator shaft. You could have a concrete house with all sorts of rebar that is playing havoc. What I like to coach our dealers and customers on is every one of these hubs or gateways you're talking about, the RF gateway. I like to think of those of about a 35 to 45 foot diameter basketball. And it's going to work really good in that basketball. Any shades in that sphere. It's probably going to work 100 feet. But depending on your construction, depending on how much metal, depending on whatever noise you have in there, occasionally you'll need to add a second gateway. If you've got a really big house, you may, just like Wi-Fi, you're going to distribute the Wi-Fi access points around the property so that you have good coverage, kind of like lawn sprinklers. Very similar, but that's really the best way I can say it. And the new gateway that we have for our RF product is PoE powered. In addition to, you of course can USB-C power it. But one of the real big things that we've done in the newest gateway that we just launched is it's also got Wi-Fi. That was one of the challenges we had with our original version of that gateway, is you had to have a hardwired Ethernet or PoE connection to it. That's not always convenient. You don't always have an Ethernet drop where you need it. So with this latest version of it, we also added Wi-Fi so that you can put those in the house where they need to be, regardless of whether you've got Ethernet there or not.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think at this point, we're a little bit over, so I'm going to go ahead and call it for the evening. So Jason, thank you so much. If anybody's interested in PowerShades, I'll have the link down below. It should be there already. People can hop out there and look for a local dealer and get somebody out same day. Take a look.
Thank you for having us, Giles.
Absolutely. And Anthony, thank you as always for coming on the show. And I look forward to hopefully seeing both of you here in lovely Denver in September at CEDIA.
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
Right on.
Yep.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Look forward to it. Anthony, look forward to seeing you there as well.
Same here. Good to meet you, Jason. Good to see you, Master McCoy.
Master McCoy, yeah.
Master McCoy. And then for everybody else, for the audience, thank you so much for joining. Your time is precious, so thank you for spending it with us. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks, guys. Good night.